Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Welcome to Monday Musings-Danny SportsWrap, and it's not often that you really are happy to watch rain come down straight and pouring, but I am today, that's for sure. I kept waiting for it to rain and kept dodging my little area in Shawnee, and I kept setting up the sprinklers and then saying, oh no, it's going to rain, and so I won't do it, and then it doesn't rain, and the grass starts to burn up. So anyway, a rainy day every now and then can be a good thing, especially on a hot July like we have had, and there's certainly a lot of hot topics as far as sports is concerned. Normally on a rainy day like this, maybe I would have in the past gone to the movie theater, but I can't do that, and I wrote a blog about that yesterday if you're interested on the blog page at DannyClinkscale.com. But Mondays on the podcast is for the Sports Wrap, usually looking at the events of the weekend, but maybe hearkening back a little bit further. And we'll be talking baseball, which actually is starting up. And, of course, the Royals will actually play 3 rapid-fire exhibition games tonight, tomorrow afternoon, and Wednesday afternoon before they open up on Friday. Baseball will open up on Thursday with a couple games. We'll get to that as well. Talk about the NFL, where a concerted effort on social media by the players to sort of put the heat on the National Football League to come up with some specifics as far as the start of play is concerned. A lot of news from the world of golf, including a new number 1 player and the biggest name in the history of golf, maybe, announcing that he had tested positive and also had antibodies test back in May. Jack Nicklaus, who was hosting the last 2 weeks of tournament play on the PGA Tour. And the weekend started off with a crazy Sporting Kansas City game, which got a crazy good result, which was necessary for Peter Vermeer's club. Very interesting Friday evening in Orlando for Sporting Kansas City. Those all things that are on the docket today on Monday Musings, Danny Sports Wrap, right here. Let's spend a minute with Dr. Brad Woodle, who along with his wife, Dr. Christina Woodle, the owners of Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture, my home for chiropractic care. And first of all, just tell us about the wide range of services you offer.
Danny, we offer comprehensive chiropractic, acupuncture, physiotherapy, and rehab. We do a very thorough examination, x-rays on site as necessary, and we have a full rehabilitation department, so we can help out with exercises, stretches, different therapies for the complex, but also the very simple conditions we treat.
You have been deemed essential and have remained open all through this COVID-19 process. What are some of the things you've done to make sure that was the case?
From the very beginning, in March, we started to make sure that we were cleaning and sanitizing with EPA-registered sanitizing products. We also implemented masks way before the state required them. We implemented a parking lot waiting room, took out half of the chairs in our waiting room, and made sure to space out visits so we could appropriately meet, discuss, and also screen patients to make sure we were taking care of healthy people.
Find out more about Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture and how they can help you at ASFCA.com. I'm here with Tim Emerson, the owner of Emerson & Company. And Tim, give us an idea of the range of services that you provide from Emerson & Company.
At Emerson & Company, we do credit card processing, payroll services. We do bookkeeping, merchant accounts like point-of-sale systems.
What would you say differentiates you from other companies in the field, and what makes you special?
I think what makes us unique is that we're a small local business making regional decisions on companies. We create a profile for the business and then put it out to our different vendors in a very competitive environment and tailor those needs to the specific business, which usually ends up in a great fit or great result for the company.
And, of course, the idea is to save money, right?
Save money, and actually sometimes I'm surprised where actually a solution that may cost a little bit more ultimately does save money, but we're not conditioned to think like that sometimes.
Emerson & Company. Check them out at emerson-co.com or call them at 816-360-9092.
If you'd like to join these and other great sponsors and market your business to a growing and engaged audience, contact us at danny@dannyclinkscale.com. Look forward to hearing from you.
Welcome back, and it seems like it's been such a long time coming, and I don't really know if we'll believe it till it's here, but we are in the week where the Major League Baseball season starts up. opening day, or opening night, as it were, this time around, will be on Thursday as the Yankees and the Nationals and the Giants and the Dodgers play. Nice little doubleheader that counts. Of course, we've been starting to see some baseball on television. ESPN had a game last night, which really turned into more of a talk show than a baseball game, but it was kind of fun. When you ever get John Shambi working any kind of setup, it usually is lighthearted, fun, and informative as well, and certainly that was. Kansas City Royals have been going through their workouts and intra-squad games, and you can learn a little bit in those games, obviously, and get yourself physically up to play. But when somebody is having a good hitting day, that just necessarily means that somebody else is having a bad pitching day, and they're both on your team, so it's a lot of times very difficult to judge. But for at least 3 games, the Kansas City Royals will get to test the waters against other opposition as they'll play a quick turnaround 2 games against the Houston Astros at Kauffman Stadium. No fans, of course. And then they'll go to St. Louis and play an afternoon game on Wednesday. That sets things up for the first series of the year, which is in Cleveland for a 3-game series and the start of a 2-series road trip for the Royals. And you know what? That's really, it seems this will be an example, a really good glaring example of the really truncated and accelerated aspect, because when I found out that the Royals were starting off with a road trip before they get back and play at home, it really almost seemed a little unfair. Here they are. They've only got to play 60 games, and the first 10% of them are away from their home ballpark. You have a bad road trip, and it really matters. And I think that we get a quick sense of how important each and every game is going to be. Losing a series is a big deal now. It's like having losing a series now is like having a bad homestand. Losing a series on the road is like having a bad road trip, and not just a bad series. So it'll be interesting to see. The Royals now are getting a lot of their players back to health. The biggest epidemic for them has certainly been positive testing in the catching ranks, and whether that's just a coincidence or not, probably is, but I'm sure they're looking at everything these days as far as the return to play and the protocols. And the protocols are an interesting thing, kind of a fun topic too. And we talked to Mike Matheny on a Zoom the other day. He talked about some of the things in a lighthearted way that the players have to deal with, including the fact that every pitcher has to have his own personal rosin bag.
They can each have a wet rag or a damp rag in their pocket, but it's just kind of getting used to. You'll see them; they'll all walk off the field after they get their third out, and then it's like, oh yeah, I got to go get my rosin bag. So I think it's just kind of, there's a little bit of awkwardness to it still, but overall, you're not going to see a whole lot different. But I think they're trying to get where each individual hitter has their own batting weight and their own, whether it's a stick or a spray, whatever it is for the bat. I think those are all supposed to be for personal use only also.
And this is also, I hate to make it all COVID, but what's going to happen with the phones in the dugout, and then when you want to call for someone to get up in the bullpen? I mean, is it only going to be you can use that, or have you even talked that through?
Yeah, that's a great question. We haven't been given guidance on that yet, but I would imagine that's probably the case. So I would think that, for the most part, you're always going to see Pedro be the contact person for replay, which is the phone that gets used the most. Maybe it's limited to Cal predominantly would be using the bullpen phone. And then maybe I get to use the other one to yell at somebody in the press box. I don't know. I would think I get one phone, right? I don't know exactly.
You mentioned all the distractions that come with the current situation. About the only distraction before all this happened was all the discussion about how the teams that had stolen signs were going to be treated in game activity. You're going to play one of those teams on Monday. Do you think that's going to be a thing of the past because of all that's gone on since then, or is that still going to be a topic?
Yeah, that's a topic that I haven't heard a word. This is the first I've been reminded of it. For us, we got to get ready to play the game. That stuff is, once again, potential distraction. But that's the world we live in, and that's part of what I believe our responsibility as a staff and an organization is to limit the distractions to get down to what we need to do, which is play the game. So, yeah, walking into those 2 exhibition games before we head east, those are just great opportunities to see somebody besides a guy standing in a Royals jersey to compete and take us one step closer. So all the things I've heard is the excitement that our players have of getting out and competing against another team. I haven't heard anything else, Dan.
Well, that answer to my question is probably the kind of thing that you'd expect. I don't know if I didn't expect that we were going to get anything from Mike Matheny like, oh, we're going to throw beanballs at the Astros, but I just wanted to see how he would answer that particular question. That was such a hot topic at the outset with the Astros and a little bit with the Red Sox, obviously, as far as the sign-stealing situation, and there was all kinds of conversation about the fact that there was going to be retribution, and I don't know if all that's gone down in our world since spring training, when spring training started, that was the topic. I mean, every player was being asked about the cheating scandal and possible retribution against particularly the Astros. And I don't know whether if this delay, the coronavirus, the Black Lives Matter situation, and all of that has sort of just put that aside or had people sort of half forget it. I don't think they have, but maybe as time has gone on, we probably would have gotten to this part of the season now, and anything that would have gone on would have had gone on. And so maybe that will be the case, and it just won't be an issue whatsoever. And I think that this accelerated schedule as well probably increases the urgency for each and every game, and that means also risking getting yourself suspended or things like that are even probably more front and center as far as your mind is concerned, and the Royals have to think about that. Everybody has to think about that, and a decent road trip to start off the season for the Royals is actually almost imperative. Like I said, you go out and go 1-5 on your road trip, and you're starting to feel like, well, the season's just going to be a way to tune up for 2021 and get the young players up and things like that. Would it be that fast? No, but you just can't fall 6-8 games under 500 and expect to be a factor in a season that only has 60 games. But whether that season of 60 games is played as an entirety and how it's played still remains to be seen. We learned over the weekend that the Toronto Blue Jays do not have a home right now. They cannot play at the Rogers Centre. The Canadian government does not want American teams or the Blue Jays themselves going back and forth for this country. That border has been closed, and there's a 14-day quarantine for anybody going from the United States to Canada. So the municipality had allowed an exception for this, an exemption or an exception, either one, whichever one you like. And the county had as well, the province, as it were, in Canada, but the national government said no. So now the Blue Jays have to look at their other options, and seemingly the best one would have been to just go less than 100 miles away and play in Buffalo, which is their AAA affiliate. It has the largest capacity stadium in minor league baseball at 16,000, which is probably plenty for the way that things are going for the Blue Jays these days. But now the Blue Jays players are actually saying they want to play in a big league ballpark. And I guess the amenities and things like that, it sounds to me a bit like a spoiled situation. Do you really want to play in somebody else's major league park when you have a perfectly viable park? The other alternative is going to your spring training facility that bears no resemblance to a major league stadium. Now it is a major league facility, and maybe the amenities are better even than the ones in Buffalo. I don't know. But it'll be an interesting situation. And what it raises is perhaps the biggest threat, and Jeff Passan was talking about this on ESPN this morning on television, the fact that if things change and communities change their minds about what can and cannot go on in their municipalities, this could happen to another team. And then they would have to scramble quickly to find out where they were going to play their home games. And in his mind, it was the biggest threat to the season. I can see that. And we have seen spikes return and changes return, opening up, closing back up. It's happened in all kinds of places. I was thinking about this the other day in regards to golf, because we're going to talk a little golf later on. And the PGA Championship at Harding Park is going to be played in California. That seemed to be in peril for a while, and then a couple months ago, or about a month ago, California was in a pretty good spot as far as flattening the curve was concerned, and they decided to allow that. No fans, of course, will be at any PGA Tour event this year. That was announced recently, too. They had hoped to do it starting with the Memorial, which was just played this past weekend. But now California's had a significant spike again. A lot of things are closing again, and It's only a couple of weeks away. It seems like it's going to happen, but things like that can change so fast, and we're going to see that in Major League Baseball. That is certainly a possibility. Another fun aspect of the restart of the baseball season will be that Sundays will be Ohtani Day. Yes, the two-way player is going to pitch on Sundays. He had a 6-strikeout performance in his last game for the Angels in an inter-squad game, and I just think this is a fun thing for baseball. You know, that player has been hurt a little bit. He's been kind of a sensation when able to get on the field. I think it's good for baseball. I think it's a fun little novelty that we can look at on Sundays as he goes out to the mound. It takes the day off, I think, before and after, and then plays the rest of the days, I think, is the way the plan goes. I just think that's interesting, an interesting aspect of baseball for this season. Football, college football, to me, seriously in peril. We're not visiting that this week. There doesn't seem to be much traction on that particular thing, and no news for a few days as well. But pro football came into focus over the weekend when some really big-name players, it started with J.J. Watt late last week, but Drew Brees weighed in. Patrick Mahomes agreed with a tweet that Drew Brees put out and putting a bullseye on it as if he was giving it his approval, and then putting out a comment of his own that stressed that the NFL needs to come up with some protocols. I think this is interesting because both sides clearly are at fault. They probably should have absolutely gotten together long ago and gotten this taken care of, but everybody kind of thinks that time just goes on, and by the time training camp rolls around, this thing will be all in the past. Well, it's far from all in the past now. Chiefs are actually welcoming in their rookies today, Chiefs and the Texans. So these things have to be decided, whether players are going to get paid if they decide they are unsafe to play. For instance, I saw Damian Woody, the retired NFL player, said he wouldn't have played under these circumstances because his wife has an autoimmune disease. There's got to be many instances of things like that, and the details are just not there, period. Will they get them worked out? Probably. As I said, I think there's some blame on both sides, but I also think the NFL perhaps purposely dragged their feet on this because they figure if we just don't really say anything and then it's about time for training camp, we'll just be able to sort of impose things and people will have to show up. Now, the big stars, they're important in this because Drew Brees' voice is a loud one. Patrick Mahomes' voice is a loud one. But for many, many of the rank and file in a sport where contracts aren't guaranteed, they kind of need a job. And they know that not showing up is an easy way for them to lose that job. That's not going to happen to somebody like the Cowboys defensive lineman Lawrence, who is talking about perhaps not playing. He'll probably have his contract honored by the Dallas Cowboys, but another player who is a solid backup or something on a football team, he likely knows that if he doesn't show up, they'll just go find somebody else. So I think there was a bit of calculation on the NFL's part as far as this is concerned, and Drew Brees probably in an idle threat, but who's to say when the words are spoken? That's always the possibility that they could be there. He says, hey, if we can't agree on this thing, there'll be no football in 2020. And for a variety of reasons, you just can't dismiss the fact that NFL football is potentially not played. You just can't look at a situation where every other sport has seen significant chunks of play missed or at least delayed. And every other sport. The NFL has just had the complete advantage of the calendar. This struck just a handful of days, really, just a couple of weeks after the Super Bowl was played, giving you a 6-month window, basically, for things to work themselves out. Now, at the outset, I'm sure the NFL thought that this was going to be completely worked out and they'd just be moving along with their calendar and everything would be hunky-dory. Well, here we are with players about to report, rookies over the next couple days and players in less than or just over a week, and a lot of things haven't been decided. Again, we'll get to see a sport air some dirty laundry in this particular situation, and it's just not good public relations, and this undoubtedly is something that with safety protocols and everything else and details about how contracts will be handled, that this should have long ago. The NFL had the luxury of time, and they wasted it, and now they're sitting at a deadline, and the players aren't happy about it. It creates tension. You never want that. It creates the possibility of delaying things. Players apparently don't want to play preseason games. Owners want to have one or two of them. I guess I don't know why, because there are no fans are going to be there anyway. Maybe for television purposes, they feel like they can squeak a little money out of that. I don't know. But there's a lot of issues to be decided, and the players decided to go in a reasonably organized fashion on social media this weekend with the hashtag We Want to Play, but also saying that the onus was on the NFL and putting the ball in their court. I think things will start to happen over the next few days, but we will see if players end up reporting, and we'll just see how it's going to be handled as far as the rookies are concerned, or if it's delayed really by the time you hear these words. And the possibilities are certainly out there, absolutely, as far as the National Football League is concerned. Still lots to cover here on Monday Musings, Danny Sports Wrap, as we'll talk a little golf. We'll talk a little Sporting Kansas City. What an amazing game on last Friday night. And we'll check things out coming up next on Monday Musings, Danny Sports Wrap.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
We're here with Joe Spiker, the CEO and president of Easton Roofing. And Joe, you had a great year in 2019, a record year. 2020 comes, things are moving smoothly along, and then the coronavirus comes. But your company seemed to be very ready, very proactive, and very ready to serve your customers well.
Yeah, we adopted social distancing very early before the cities even put out the notices. And we started working from home. We are largely cloud-based as a company, so that transition was easy. Our technicians are wearing masks and gloves, and salespeople are not meeting with homeowners. We're doing everything digitally and doing everything we can to do our part to get over this as quickly as possible.
So for any needs that people have right now, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, you can always call us, 913-257-5426. But the best way is to go to eastonroofing.com, put your information in, and we'll give you a call.
Easton Roofing. Integrity matters. Cinematic Visions has been an affordable solution for professional media production in Kansas City since 2003, offering award-winning video production and creation, as well as a wide array of digital and social media management services. From planning, scripting, filming, editing, and post-production, to delivering your product to a watching world, Cinematic Visions will provide professional and affordable services for you and your business with the necessary return on investment to make it all worthwhile. Cinematic Vision's goal is to unlock the power of storytelling through video and a strong online presence for your company. Beyond the numbers, they want to inspire and evoke your clients to feel and act. Let my friends at Cinematic Visions embed your brand where it belongs, in your customers' minds. You can find them online at cinematicvisions.com or with a quick phone call at 816-600-6300. We're visiting with Larry Marshall, former Chiefs defensive back and punt returner and now a Chiefs ambassador. Larry is a former pro football player with the aches and pains that come with that, and moving on in age as we all are. What do the Canaway CBD products do for you?
It's been a great relief for me. Being a punt and kickoff returner, collisions were a mainstay of my career, and these Canaway products, the salve especially, has really helped me try to get through every day with the aches and pains that I've had over a career of 7+ years in the NFL.
I get similar benefits as well, particularly with my back. Certainly wasn't a football player. What's the best way for our listeners to get more information about the great products themselves?
Well, I'm so enthused about it, Dana. They just contacted me at larrymarshall.canaway.com, and I can give them all the information they need to help them get through the day as well.
Start gaining all the benefits that Larry and I do from the trusted and reliable line of Canaway products. As Larry said, visit larrymarshall.canaway.com and get information on all the great products from Canaway. If you'd like to join these and other great sponsors and market your business to a growing and engaged audience, contact us at danny@dannyclinkscale.com. Look forward to hearing from you. Welcome back, and the weekend kind of began, of course, on Friday night, and the vagaries of soccer were shown as the weekend was off to kind of a cool and crazy start as Sporting Kansas City rallied for a 3-2 win. If you're a soccer fan and you've got friends who aren't soccer fans who think the game is boring and you DVR'd the game, you ought to show this game to them because there was nothing boring or low scoring or not nutty about this particular game that Sporting won by a count of 3-2. And I mentioned the vagaries of soccer. Sporting, no doubt, played better in their first game against Minnesota, a game that would end up being a 2-1 loss, dominating the first 60 minutes, and then Minnesota come back and rallying and scoring a couple of goals and beating Sporting and kind of making this game at least a must-get a result, if not a must-win. And Colorado got off to a fast start in the game. They got an early goal 6 minutes in, and they were up 1-0. But then Sporting played well for a while, but it still was 1-0 Colorado at the half. But then the nuttiness would ensue in the second half. In the 61st minute, VAR changes a yellow to a red against Colorado and drops them down to 10 men. It resulted in a penalty kick, and Alain Pulido hit the crossbar with his penalty kick, and it seemed like Sporting would catch a bad break there, but just a few minutes later, a great goal and a great cross by Gadi Kinda, and Kyrie Shelton volleyed it right out of the air at the left post, or the far post, left post as I was looking at it, and the game was knotted up at 1 apiece, and of course it's tied, and Sporting is playing against a side that's only playing with 10 men. And then VAR does them a solid again, a slight touch off a Colorado hand, and that was ruled a penalty kick as well. And Pulido rockets it home, absolute powerhouse of a penalty kick, and it was 2-1. And then Sporting looks like for sure they are in the driver's seat, and they are going to win this game for sure, because in the 73rd minute there was another sending off after some volatility by Colorado. So now they're playing with 9 men. But just under 10 minutes later, Colorado, 2 men down, ties up the game in the 83rd minute, and looks like maybe it's going to be another disaster for Sporting. Well, 11 against 9 is pretty good business, and Sporting is pressing, but they did catch another good break for the winning goal, as Sporting pressing, as I mentioned, and Zuzi's low shot took a deflection and just sort of slowly moonballed over the keeper, who could do nothing about it, and Sporting would get to the 3-2 victory. Peter Vermees, as usual, had some really interesting comments after the game and some good reflections on the difficulties of playing under the circumstances that we have right now with the coronavirus. Of course, they're playing in a bubble down in Orlando, and he mentioned how tough it is on the guys and the fact that the camaraderie is compromised, and then that his team was kind of distracted and gutted by a positive test in midweek. And he said the training session that day was really terrible, and it was the last full training session because it was Wednesday, Thursday kind of more of a rest day. So they came into this off a bad workout and didn't play their best game. But he did have high praise for the mental toughness of his team. He also noted how difficult it is, especially for a team like Sporting, which has such an incredible home advantage, to play with no fans. And so there are a variety of challenges, and I think in many cases, and I think there's many coaches and managers like this, and I think that Peter Vermees oftentimes will be more critical of his team when they have played a good match than maybe when they haven't played so well. And he talked about the fact that there shouldn't be a real asterisk on this game, no matter whether they had 1 man sent off or 2 men sent off. It still is a victory, and he praised the mental toughness of his team. So Sporting Kansas City gets the badly needed victory under really strange circumstances, but it was certainly a fun way to start out the sporting weekend. That's a general statement, the sporting weekend, not the Sporting KC weekend, but it certainly was a lot of fun, and that was great Friday evening entertainment, to say the least. Let's talk a little golf to close things out. And certainly anything in sports these days gets entwined with the coronavirus, and that certainly was the case over the weekend, as Jack Nicklaus, who is always interesting when he is put on a television broadcast. They had him in a big, comfy chair this time around for the broadcast, but he'll come on and call the action for about an hour or so, and he's always forthright, he's always insightful, and in this case he was very informative because he opened up to the fact that back in March, he and his wife Barbara had both tested positive for the coronavirus. Barbara was asymptomatic. Jack Nicklaus did have, he said, a sore throat and coughing, and for about 5 weeks they quarantined themselves and rode it out, and they were tested, and they passed an antibodies test. And so that created a situation where it seemed like some comments that were a little bit insensitive or borderline ignorant, it seemed like, at the outset of the week, where Jack Nicklaus just blithely was talking about the fact that he was going to shake people's hands and that he couldn't give them the coronavirus. It sounded like he was a little tone deaf about the whole situation, but when you find out that he did test positive and then, of course, had the antibodies test as well afterwards, that he felt like that created a area of safety. Now, it's not 100% certain anymore, apparently, that you can't get the disease again, but certainly somebody who's had it is a lot less likely to pass it on, and just good to hear that an 80-year-old man and his wife of a similar age, I think Barbara's about the exact same age, Barbara Nicklaus, were not affected in a more negative way, because that is absolutely the age where it's really the most abhorrent that we have seen with the situations in nursing homes and everything else, and people are far, far more vulnerable at that age. And Jack Nicklaus, healthy again, did opt for the mask during the course of the Memorial Tournament, did opt for fist bumps instead of a handshake. He said he would have shaken people's hands. Most of them just did go for the fist bump. It's generally what I tend to do, or the elbow bump. But he also was wearing an Ohio State mask much of the time. And so that's an interesting story from the standpoint of clarifying some of the things that Jack Nicklaus said at the outset of the week, and also providing some, I think, another example of, the more high-profile people who are affected by the coronavirus, I think the more that people who are resistant to taking the situation seriously may do so a little bit more. Maybe the words of Freddie Freeman, a young man who got the coronavirus and was really, really sick, saying he was praying for his life at times. His temperature got as high as 104.5, and that is a young, healthy person who was in that situation, and maybe those words tend to resonate as well. On the golf course itself, it was a changing of the guard as Jon Rahm, who's played great golf for a long, long time now, climbed to the top of the world rankings as he passed Rory McIlroy. He won the tournament. He had a huge lead in the tournament, and then it saw it shrink and shrink, hold out an incredibly difficult chip shot to sort of calm the waters, and found out later that he got a 2-shot penalty, still won by 3 shots to take over the top spot in the world. Powerful player with a little bit of a hot temper, and I think a very charismatic player for the world of golf, and we're going to see the number 1 ranking, I think, shift around a lot. Rory McIlroy had been playing sensational golf coming into time off for the PGA Tour, but when the resumption has come, he's only played indifferent golf. He's made cuts, but he has not had high finishes, and had another low one and a bad final round, and that cinched, Rahm was going to be the top player in the world if he won no matter what, unless McIlroy had finished second. I believe that was the case. And so he is at the top of the rankings. He certainly has the possibility to stay there for a while. He's got all the aspects of the game to do so, but I think it'll light a bit of a fire under Rory McIlroy as well, and he will probably be ready to get at it. He is playing in a couple of weeks in Memphis at the FedEx Tournament, World Golf Championship there, and then the PGA Championship is after that. This week is a regular tour stop in Minnesota, which won't have the kind of fields we've seen over the last few weeks, and then a couple of big-time tournaments with big-time fields, and hopefully California will be the spot that they'll be playing the PGA Championship a couple of weeks from now. But a new number 1 in the world of golf, Jon Rahm, and some news out of Jack Nicklaus's camp as well that puts further focus on where we stand in the world of sports, which is still complicated in almost every aspect. But by the time we speak on this particular podcast, Monday Musings, Danny Sports Wrap, next time around, we'll have actual baseball games that have been played that count to talk about. And isn't that refreshing? And hopefully we'll be talking about that and not any kind of delay or anything else. Maybe we'll have more news about the National Football League. There's always questions. We tried to provide some answers and some opinions as we visit each and every Monday here. And, of course, the rest of the week we do all kinds of different things, some sports, some not, some blogs, some podcasts. So just pay attention at DannyKlingscale.com. And remember, you can always catch up. It's an easy way to catch up with all your sports news each and every day. Just go to the Team News and Buzz page at DannyKlingscale.com. And there's stories rotating there all the time about our local teams, all of them. It's an easy way to get all your sports information in one spot. So do that for your local teams and check that out, and check everything out at DannyKlingscale.com. You have been. I hope you continue to do so, and tell a friend as well how much fun it is. I had fun today. Hope you did. Talk again soon. Well, I talk to you about just about every day, so enjoy it, stay safe, and be well.
This podcast was made possible by our great sponsors like
Easton Roofing, the presenting sponsor of Kansas City Profiles at the Danny Klingscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Easton Roofing, where integrity matters.
We hope you enjoyed the latest Danny Klingscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Come back soon for something fresh and new.